Hello, this is my first time out this year. We are at Veules on the Normandy coast. That's the club building of which I'm a member, and these magnificent cliffs are just a few days after the beach has been reopened. Here's Sofia, the little yellow boat, which is much more practical for launching from a beach, with a sprit rig from an Optimist. And there we go. I can't film whilst I'm launching because I've got so many things to do, but once I'm at sea I'll take some sequences of the cliffs. I'm now leaving the beach of Veules, and I'll just give you a panorama along the cliffs. Just above the end of my boom, my main sheet, and the headland over there is Saint-Valery-en-Caux, which is a small fishing and pleasure port. It's a very pleasant day today. There's very little wind, but I'm coasting along quite well with this readjusted Optimist rig. They seem to be more or less close halts. A slight reach. So I'm going up towards a buoy up here, which appears to be a marker for a mussel bed. So I'll go back along as well the rows, and that's up towards the direction of Dieppe, which of course you can't see. I'll end the film here. I have less than 5 knots of wind. You can just see the little bubbles going past the stern of my boat. So it's not too bad. I'm ghosting, and I'm also going along with the current. There's a coefficient of about 80 odd today, so I've got to be careful to make sure that I can get back. So I think I'll probably turn around and go east, because this seems very easy, but it might not be so easy getting back. So I think I'm good to turn round. Okay. The tradition round here for fishing, this is Veules is mostly a tourist beach and a sailing club, but there is one firm of professional fishermen, and they have a dory which is launched and recovered each time. It's taken out of the water with a tractor and a trailer, and this little boat is just putting to sea. I don't know if you can see her because she's so far away, but she's out on. They lay buoys and nets, and they leave them for so long, and then they go out and they haul it all up, and with whatever's in the nets. She's just going across my bow, right just between the boom bang and the mast. If you can see her on here, very powerful motor dory, and she's got a load of buoys in the bow. I'm luffing up, so I better get it off the wind a little bit. There we are. I'm in a fairly close reach, and I'm just ghosting along. As always, when you go sailing, one has to be very careful about the ebb tide, which is not very high, but it is about 80 coefficient. I'm now going against the tide, and I can check that I'm making progress against the land without any navigation tools, just by watching those buildings and the trees. and to see if there's any movement. For example, there's a red flag on the cliff over the sailing club, and there's a house just behind. And I'm making very, very slow progress. The flagpole is moving between one upstairs window and the next, very, very, very slowly. So I've got to make the most of whatever wind I've got. And if I really, well, I'm not at the creek without a paddle, because I have a paddle, so I can get this boat moving a little bit quicker. But the flagpole is getting to the second window, so I am making progress against the ebb tide. Okay, so I'll call that quits for the moment and come back with anything else interesting. One amazing thing about in France, this is unrelated to sailing, is we're only just over a week out of lockdown, and this beach of Veules was opened last Saturday, and the authorities specified that the beaches would be used for dynamic purposes. That's to say, walking, running, playing sports, or doing what I'm doing, sailing. So I just needed to take the boat on the beach, get her ready, and launch the boat without getting anywhere near anywhere else. Most of those people over there are walking along, and if they're in close groups, they're probably from the same family. So obviously one has to be logical, one has to be coherent. But putting one's towel down on the beach and sitting or sunbathing actually is forbidden, because it would encourage large numbers of people to group up and potentially spread the coronavirus. And already in Brittany, several beaches have been closed for this reason, and also because it's the Ascension long weekend. And so the authorities are getting very jittery about these things, because whatever happens in life, legally somebody is responsible. So that's the terrible thing. Another thing in France, I'm laughing up too much, I better correct my course a little bit. The other thing in France is everything is forbidden, but people do it all the same until they get caught. Well, I was concerned about the ebb tide current, but I'm still prevailing. I'm still getting past. Oh, here come our friends, the fishermen. They've planted their buoys, and now he's on his way back to the beach. Does an amazing speed. He's a very powerful engine. So back he goes. There'll be the tractor waiting for him. They're good people. They're good, honest, hard-working people. I have a great amount of admiration for them, because they don't always go out in such beautiful conditions like we pleasure sailors do. So anyway, he's off. He's on his way back to the beach, and he'll probably go and have another glass of wine or something when he gets back in. A few more herring and a few more mackerels to gut and get ready for the fishmongers. Okay, so oh yes, I can just about see the edge of the cliffs of Dieppe, but we won't be able to see them from here. But I'll see if I can get a little bit further along. Just the next page of my little log. The wind has picked up a little bit, and I'm able to feel the effect of my having moved mast forward a little bit, and the rudder is just being held by a very small, a very light piece of elastic. There's a slight, I have the impression there's a slight lee helm, but sometimes I go to luff. So I think it's a fairly neutral. Balance. But I've picked up speed a little bit. There's a little bit of wind. You can see the little bits of froth going past the boat. So, and there's the wake from the stern. and I can see very clearly the differences of perspective between the buildings and the trees, and or one building and another. So I'm very definitely moving rather well. So I'll sign off here and get back to you when I'm a little bit further along the coast. One thing about these cliffs is they might not seem very much from this distance, but they're pretty high, and they're mostly chalk with layers of flint, and you can see a lot of quite large rocks on the beach there. That was from about 3 or 4 years ago. There was a nasty fall of quite a lot of cliff, and that probably the fossil hunters were out in force to find what they could. And there are some interesting little caves underneath. I wouldn't go in any of those caves. They're probably very, very dangerous, because at any time a piece of that cliff can fall. So it's very, very dangerous to go walking at the bottom of the cliff. So it's nice to see them, but from a good distance. Just another little idea is that it's a great pleasure to be back here at Veules. This is where I had my very first sailing lessons in 2008, because there's the Fédération Française de Veules, which is something like the equivalent of the British the British sailing, whatever it is, I can't remember. Anyway, but anyway, it's a very professional school. They teach a lot of kids to sail, a lot of adults, and the main place is beyond Saint-Valery-en-Caux. There's a place called Veules sur Mer, and that's where they have their main school around here. And that was my alma mater. So it's a great pleasure to hear. And it's also my very first time out sailing this year, after 2 months of lockdown. And I've lived almost a monastic life, other than 1 or 2 domestic issues. But I've more or less pulled through it. And then we had the lockdown was released partially on May the 11th. And this and other beaches were opened last Saturday. How long they will stay open, I've no idea, because people are not following the rules. So I hope we're not all going to be penalised for the irresponsible behaviour of a few. It's always like that in life. Anyway, at the end of the month, 29th of May, is about the time we will be allowed to sail on rivers, and I would like very much in June to do another outing on the Seine. And this whole emergency system will be over on the 11th of July, when in theory we should be back to normal. Whether the virus would agree with that or not, I've no idea. I better fall off the wind a little bit. Here we are, because otherwise I'm flapping around. Right, I'm back on the wind again, and there we are. Some people are doing what they should be doing, either walking or running, or just enjoying themselves. It's just a pity that people are sitting down and sunbathing, which is one thing that is not presently allowed. Anyway, just have to hope that I think there will be a certain amount of tolerance, because I think the groups are probably family groups and people are not too grouped together. So I should imagine the police aren't too bothered about what's going on. Anyway, I'll sign off for now. This is an absolutely splendid view of the cliffs. I'm looking over the stern of the boat because I've just tacked out to sea to get a little bit more lee room and to be away from the beach and all these various rocks along the shore. So it's a magnificent view. You can see the fresh parts where bits have broken away. That's another fresh éboulement, as they say in French. And the wind is freshening a little bit. I've got a little bit of speed. I'm probably doing about 3 knots, which is pretty good for today. I'm in a beam reach to get a little bit more speed and power. Few people walking along, and which is altogether in order. They have their little dogs and they have their families, and they must have had a hard time locked up in their flats or in their houses or wherever they live. And it's just a pleasure for us all to be outdoors in such beautiful weather and close to nature and the sea. Here I am making a little bit more progress towards the east, and it's very nearly low tide, so I'm getting there a little bit quicker. I'm beating against the wind. I'm close hauling, but doing quite well, using my thigh to steer the boat. And there's a very interesting little place which is too far away to see just now, so I'll show it to you when I get there in the time it takes to get there with this small amount of wind. There's something I like very much about this Optimist rig, is its simplicity. There's a certain amount of similarity to the lug rig, but of course it is a sprit rig. You can see the sprit, one end of the sprit just behind the mast there, and holding the top of the sail up. And for the Cunningham, it's just attached to the boom, and the vang ensures the tightness of the sail luff. It's incredibly simple. There's no adjustable outhaul. I just found that there's none needed. There's a vang. There's the cleat for the sprit, and the main sheet. Here, that's all there is. Just one sail. No standing rigging. Just very, very, very simple. I find it for a boat of this size, it's just ideal. I'm just about out of wind here, so what I was going to show you before is a staircase going up between two parts of the cliffs. I would almost call it one of the smallest beaches in the world. There doesn't seem to be any way of launching boats from there. And a little bit further to the left, there's a distant headland, which you probably won't see very clearly at all, but that's Varengeville, where there is a very beautiful house called Le Clos, Le Clos, oh dear, alright, I've forgotten it, so I'll just have to, it's a house designed by Lutyens, an English architect of the end of the 19th century, who built Le Clos Moutier. And this house was built at the end of the 19th century, and is a very famous example of the arts and crafts style. Very beautiful house, and I'll put some photos up on my blog, because the garden is open to the public most of the time, and very occasionally the house is open on special heritage days or for musical concerts. And then beyond that headland, which the high headland, which is Varengeville, there's another headland which I can see with my eyes, but you certainly won't see it on the video. That's Dieppe up there, and there's a ferry service that goes to Newhaven in England, and the crossing takes 4 hours by ferry. For those who are prepared to face the various restrictions because of the pandemic. Think probably towards the middle of June it will be possible to journey between England and France without too much in the way of restrictions. Anyway, we'll see how that goes. I'm not planning any trips to England in the near future. But anyway, that's where Dieppe is. It's a rather nice port, and in the old days, I'd say about 30 years ago, the ferry sailed into the port in the middle of the town. Nowadays, that port has been turned into a leisure sailing port, and there's a new ferry terminal, which is certainly infinitely more practical for those who are in control of the ferry and the railway service that goes to Paris. It was my usual way in and out of France for the first few years when I came over in the early 1980s. So there's a kind of concrete, the man-made structure there. I'm not going to go any further here because there's very, very, very little wind. It's just enough wind to give me steerage and no more. So I'm going to turn around, and I'm going to go with the following wind and back to Veules, which is just there. I'm pointing at it now. They talk about a slow boat from China, or a slow boat to China. I'm rather glad I'm not going to China at this speed. I must be doing a stately 1 knot. I have a very tiny amount of wind, and I'm now running before the wind. Just another comment on the cliffs. What I'm pointing straight at is a part of the cliff that seems to have fallen very recently, because the rocks under it are still very fresh, and imagine somebody walking onto that cliff just at the moment it falls. There's not a chance of survival. It's very, very dangerous. Just like along the south coast of, or parts of the south coast of England, like in Sussex. Very, very, very dangerous. There's somebody walking along there now, but he's far enough away from the cliff to be safe. But every beauty contains its dangers. This is a very, very beautiful and awesome part of the world, and I very much enjoy coming to sail along here, even though everything is so familiar to me. Signing off. If these waters could talk, they would relate many tales of heroism or self-sacrifice. These jagged objects you see in the water, if you can see them at all, are parts of a British ship that grounded here. I think it was 1940, rather than, yes, it was 1940. The idea was to rescue a number of Canadian and Scottish servicemen, and a second ship came to take them off the grounded ship. So these are the remains of the grounded ship, and let us remember those who lost their lives for the freedom of France, of England, and many other countries. So there are the pieces. I will put a link and some information about this ship on my website underneath this video. So I'm very slowly approaching Veules. It's going to take me a while to get there because there's still very little wind, but I still seem to be eking out a knot or so. This boom is enjoying itself, creaking on the mast. That's the one thing about a wooden rig. Anyway, I'll sign off and probably come back just before landing. Just arriving on the beach, taking the rudder off, and here we go. Just a small wave, and there goes my paddle. Right, before the paddle gets washed out to sea. We'll take the boat on the beach. Paddle before it goes out to sea. There we are. Paddle back in the boat. Grab the painter. And here we go. Gotta watch the waves on this beach. They can sometimes be pretty nasty. Right, here we go. Right. Take this down. Take the spread down. There we go. And let's see you very much. Right. So there we are. Just a tiny wave, and the boat's pretty well full of water. Anyway, I'm going to take the rig down and see if I can get a bit further out of water. So sign off here. This is the last of my little videos for today. This is where I'm leaving little Sophie for the summer. Whilst I get before I'm going to get the covers on, and I'll leave her here. You see, this is where my fellow members have the little boats. Nice little Moth Europe, very nice little cat boat. A whacking great catamaran. A little Optimist, a few trailers, couple of lasers, and there's still lots of buoys they're going to put in for the summer to mark off the beach. And very often there's rows and rows of boats on the other side, but not just for the moment. This is the fishing place, the tractor here, with lots and lots of nets and buoys and all the paraphernalia they use. And this is the This is the famous Doris they use. It's a flat-bottomed boat with a hard chine. Apparently it's extremely stable. It's built of steel, very, very tough, and they put the fish in there, winches for the nets, and with powerful pumps, a helm with a car steering wheel, and this very powerful outboard engine, 100 horsepower, and it certainly packs a punch. And I admire these men because they go out winter and summer alike, and it's a tough job. And it's hauled out each time with the tractor. The tractor has a mechanism that lifts up, and there's a winch. They do this every day, and it's all power. So there we have the and then zone réservée aux adhérents, Nautic Club Veules, area reserved for members. Well, I'm a member of the club, so I can leave my boat here, and I can when I come here I can park my car where I have the boat. So there's never any problem for parking. So there we are. So I'm going to sign off now and get all these videos onto YouTube a little bit later this evening.